Good morning. My name is Tiffany Lea. I'm a jewelry artist and designer with the design company Arts4all. And today I am going to teach you a fun little activity, how to make colorful pendants out using copper charms. What's really exciting about using the copper that we're going to be using today is we use a technique called sandblasting on it. And by sandblasting it, it allows us to actually use colored pencils to color the copper. We'll be adding a patina coat on it with the colored pencils, kind of giving it just more of a colorful flavor rather than the copper. So the discs start off being smooth, flat discs. Some of you might see in your package that your discs have one side that's shiny and one side that is powdered. It's like a more of a matte finish to it. The way that we do this and make the discs have this powdered coat or this powdered sort of coating on them is by a process called sandblasting, where we take the metal and we use air pressure and granulated sand and just shoot that right at the copper. It's a way of cleaning up metal, but it also leaves this nice matte finish, and it allows us to be able to work with it in different ways that we can't do when it's smooth and shiny like the regular metal finish would be. So if you stop by at Arts at Large Cafe, you've picked up a supply bag, and we've got a nice array of supplies for you, and I'll go over what all should be in your bag. So your bag should have come with 2 pendants. You have a little starburst or a round disc. You have 1 length of thicker gauge wire, and then 2 lengths of a slightly thinner gauge wire. These allow you to attach things in different ways. That's why we have the 2 different gauges of wire. The thinner one is a 20 gauge wire. The thicker one is an 18 gauge wire. You should have also received a little bag of beads and charms and 2 leather cords, which is what we're going to make the pendants, how we're actually going to turn them into necklaces. And most importantly, some colored pencils, which is how we're going to actually decorate the metal. In addition to these supplies, it's always nice to have a variety of pliers. You don't need them. I'm going to show you how to do the techniques so that you don't need them. If you do have them, it might just make things a little bit easier. We have the needle nose pliers, which is good for just rounding things, a wire cutter. These pliers are nice because they have plastic coating on them, so they don't rough up anything that you're actually twisting them with. Or standard pliers, if you did our magic wand episode earlier this month, you'd have gotten a pair of these, which are just your standard utility pliers that can be great just for helping to bend that thicker gauge wire. If you have any additional wire lying around or additional beads, please feel free to use those and incorporate them into your charms as well. There's no limit to what all you can do with this. I also have a pen or a pencil, which you can use if you don't want to use the colored pencils for the first step. You can also utilize just a pen or a pencil might be nicer because you can erase it if you want to change your mind. So to start today, we're going to pick which pendant you want to use. And what we're going to do is you're going to lay the pendants on a piece of paper, and then we're going to just trace around the pendant because we want to draw out our design. Because once you put that color on the pendant, it's going to be on the pendant for good. So we want to make sure that we know what it is that we are going to be designing today. So you can just trace around with the pencil on a plain piece of paper. Any sort of scrap paper will do. The starburst one might be a little bit more challenging. But just hold it down with your thumb. Because of that nice sandblasting, you don't need to worry about ruining or leaving fingerprints on your pendants. And we're just going to kind of trace around so we know what the area is that we have. And this isn't a step that you need to take. If you want to just grab your pendants and start coloring, you're more than welcome to. What's nice about taking this additional step is, like I said, once that color goes on your pendant, that color is on the pendant. It's not, we're not going to be removing it. We can build it up, but we can't take it away. So you have your outlines of what you want to draw. And now you can either take a pencil and sketch out, maybe if you have a specific pattern you want, you can sketch it out. Maybe you want to draw a flower on it. Maybe you want to do something abstract. That's totally all right as well. And you can either draw it in with a pencil, or you can go ahead and draw it in with colored pencils. I think I'm going to use the colored pencils just so you can see them a little bit easier. So I'm going to look over at this flower pendant here. I'm going to pick colors that should hopefully show up nicely. And so I've got the outline for the flower pendant. Is there any way we can zoom this in a little bit on that? We'll see if we can zoom this in so you can see it a little bit easier. So we have the outline for the flower pendant. Here, I'll go over this in black so it's a little bit easier to see. Kind of sketching this out a little darker. It won't be quite as in line, but it's really just for brainstorming and getting your mind working on what you would want to have on this pendant. One way you might want to brainstorm is looking at your bag of beads. In your little bag of beads, you would have gotten several charms, and you can see what those charms are. Maybe those charms will help inspire you. Looks like I've got a kitty, a unicorn, or no, that's a horse, or a fish. So maybe I want to do something with one of those. I think with the flower pendants, I would want to do something natural because we're in spring. I love vibrant, happy spring colors. So I'm going to play with the design and see what I like drawing here. And if you don't like what you come up with, that's totally okay. You can just, this is why we're doing it on paper first. So I was thinking to do this, but I'm starting to look at that and I'm like, that looks a little bit more like a kiwi than a flower. So I'm not as happy with that. So I'm going to bring back this flower pendant. And I'm just going to re-sketch it. Little starburst here and see what else I might want to do. Just kind of sketching along. All right. So I didn't like doing the lines like that, so I'm going to experiment with something else. Let's see. I want something kind of springy, so maybe I'll start by putting down some nice red in the center. Maybe I'll try just having it go out and not be as formal of a color. And I'm going to do the center in red. Then bring that out to a lighter red. It looks like I don't have, maybe this is pink. We'll see. Oh yeah, that's a nice pinkish color. And see how I like how this ends up turning out. And being able to sketch it really allows you to experiment a little bit more with what you're going to want that color to be. Like I said, I want this to kind of give me a nice spring feel. Doesn't have to look really fancy, you know, I'm not a perfect drawing artist, especially when it comes to flowers. I'm much more on faces. And I like to do my pendants a lot of times abstract. I'll show you a little bit more abstract work with it on the round pendant. I'm trying to sketch this one out. I'm going to move to orange. So I'm going to kind of have a color variation as we're going up these leaves. I'm going to see how I like the look of that. Then it could either be a flower or maybe it'll actually be like a sun. If you have something you actually want to draw in the pendant, if you have an idea, or if you want to write words, this would be a great time to lay out how you want those words to look so that you know, because there's nothing worse than when you start writing words in an area and then you realize you don't have space to make it all the way through. That's again why just drawing it out ahead of time and sketching it can be really great for your creative process. We live in a time when paper is relatively affordable, so we can not have to worry about using it up, and it's not like you're wasting it. You can grab it little scrap pieces and make sure that they feel full of life as well by filling them up with colorful drawings that you're sending out into the world, all while you're prepping your art piece. See, I'm really liking that now. And then I'm going to come in with the green, I think. And then just add a little bit of detail to it. Just add some shading there. Decide if I like that. I do. I think I like that with the green. It's really nice. Just kind of gives a little bit of separation to it. A little bit of green right in the center. Give it a nice spring feel. Pretty happy with this flower. I think I like that. All right. So once you've sketched out, or here, I'll show you if you have your outline here for the circle, or maybe you want to do it in the starburst, like I said. If you want to write words, you can always line those up. Like maybe if we got Mother's Day coming up, right? So I'm going to do heart, and then mom, and I want to make sure that I'm getting it centered, because if I don't, then I'm going to want to relay it out to center it, because otherwise you start running out of paper, right? Then maybe down here, we could do a little tulip. Tulips are easy to draw. You just do like a petal shape, and then you come up and you do a petal shape the other way, and you're just cutting half of it off. And got a beautiful little tulip there. It's great for Mother's Day. If you want to add in the leaves of the tulips too, you just come up and you make a nice little angle. Tulips are nice that way. I like the spring flowers. You just come up, make one little petal, and then you make another petal on the other side, and you're covering part of that. Draw your 2 lines to bring it down. And then if you want to make the leaf, you just come up and then hook it back down, and you've got a tulip leaf. Really nice and easy. Or you can always do a fun little, if you're doing a flower, you can do a rose. Roses are nice too because they're pretty easy. You just make a series of little half arches going around, making them bigger and bigger, kind of encompassing each other. Just these little arch lines gives you a nice cute rose shape. So there's some ideas for spring that you can do. A few little flowers if you're coloring them in. You can go in, you can color in the flowers on your pendant, just taking your pencil and coloring them on in. Maybe drawing them bigger will make it a little easier the first time you do it, so that when you go in and you draw it small onto the pendant, you have a little bit more control. And of course, if you have other ways to draw things, please do. I'm just giving you a few suggestions on ways that you can draw it on the pendant. So now we're going to move on to actually coloring on the pendants. So if I want to draw the way that I did in my little sketch, I'm going to look at my sketch, and I started by using red, and actually I put a little bit of green in the center. So I think maybe I'll put that green dot first. And you'll notice as you draw, it stays on there. Take your finger, and it might smudge a little bit, but it's not going anywhere. Versus if you were to draw on the smooth side, the color really doesn't stay at all. If you were to take your finger, it wipes right off. And that's the great thing that sandblasting does. We made the surface texture of the metal rough, and that allowed it to pick up the pigment that is in the colored pencils. If you have a larger piece, you could also do this with crayons. They might rub off a little bit more, but the concept is still very similar there. Bring around with that color, and you can see the more you spin it around, the more you put onto it, the more it kind of layers in and gives you a richer color. You can go really light like this and have a pale color. I don't know if you're able to see that on the camera here. Let's see if we can put that right into focus. You can see the difference between the pale color and the richer color. You don't have to push hard to do that. You don't need to crank down on your colored pencil. Just going nice and smooth, but just adding layer by layer of the color to it is what's going to give you that nice, warm, rich flavor to it. You can do a little bit of color blending if you're familiar with doing color blending with colored pencils. Come in with the green here first, I think. Add in those green petals that I drew. Yeah, if you're familiar with color blending, that can be done a little bit here too. You're a little bit more limited because you can't blend the colors after you put them down, but you can blend them as you're putting them down. It's a little bit rougher than it would be if you were doing it on paper. I'm going to come in with the pink. So because I drew the lines first, now I'm a little bit more encaged. Got to draw between the lines, whereas when I drew it at first, I made the lines after. Like I said, once you get that pigment on the copper, you're not going to be able to remove it. So that's why I wanted to make sure that green was vibrant here. We're just going around and we're coloring, thinking of nice, warm spring things, happy thoughts. Coloring is always fun and relaxing. It's a good way to keep yourself calm, especially in these trying COVID times. It's a de-stressor. And rather than just coloring to have a little picture, with this, you're coloring to be able to have a picture you can show off every day by wearing it. Going in, that's not a very light pink, but that's okay. It's a little different than the red in the center. Maybe I want the red in the center a little bit richer, so I'm going to go over it again. It'll get to a point where you'll start seeing it really smooth out, and that's when you fully colored that piece and you're not going to be able to get that color any darker. Orange on top of it. All right. It's fun to experiment and play with the different colors that you might want to do, depending on what your beads are that you've had in the bag or what you might have from other things that you've done that might inspire your color palette. Because remember, these are all going to be put together to make a necklace. So you want to try and keep your color palette cohesive. Go. I'm going to move on to the last color here with the yellow. And don't worry if you haven't figured out what you want to draw yet. You can take your time, think about it, keep drawing on the paper as much as you want to. Let it really inspire you. You can see when the colors are on the copper, they're a bit of a darker shade, especially with that yellow. It doesn't pop quite the same way that it does on the paper. And so that's something you need to think about when you're doing your drawings. You decide too, do you want to color in this little knob there for hanging, or do you want to leave that plain? Just going through, letting those colors blend a little bit on there, going all the way to the edge. If you've got a piece of paper down underneath you, it's not a problem if you go over the edge, so it's always nice to have that piece of paper down so you're not wrecking your table. So there we go. You can see, here's the original design. And here it is with color. I think I'm going to go over these green lines a little bit more. It's not fully saturated. I can get those a little darker. Making those a little darker, they'll make the petals pop a little bit more. It's on an aerial view, so you guys can't see, but as I draw, I tend to bite my lip a lot. It's my focus face. Even if I'm just doing fun little coloring, I like to still focus my attention and my energy. So I'm putting my thoughts and my brain into this. And you can see there is your finished piece. The colors are really warm and rich. So they're not quite as light as it is in the initial, but you've got that really rich color You can see when you run your finger over it, it's not going anywhere. It's very secure onto that copper pendant. So you have a fun little piece that you can wear. And then we're gonna move over to here. So I did draw out how you would do if you want to do words, but one thing I'd like to show you is how to do more of an abstract drawing, which I love to do on these round pendants, especially. For me, doing something more abstract and just free-flowing kind of reminds me of more of a space vibe. So I'm gonna take a blue here, and actually, some of them might even have a few like lines on them from the sandblasting. And that's where I really got inspired for this, for that spacey sort of vibe, because you already have those lines. If you have one like that, it can be really great. It can help you to just sort of free flow around those lines, or on your own, just sort of draw a few lines and then draw another set of lines that connects to those. And then you might want to draw another one. It's almost like decorating an Easter egg, but you're trying not for a specific pattern. You don't want it to go all the way through. You can have it kind of cut there. And then you can take your color, color it in. And maybe you want to color it in light because you want a different color than what you have in your colored pencils. What you can do is maybe I want this to be a little bit more purple. So see, I'm not pushing all the way down. I'm not saturating it with color like I did with the first one. I left it light, and then I'm going to come through with this reddish color. And I'm going to go over it as well so that we blend it to give us a little bit more of a purpley color. So I'm, again, not pushing too heavy on it because I want the colors to kind of blend in together. And I'm going to do that by layering them. And that'll give me a color a little bit different than what I have in my box. I'm just kind of going light so they naturally layer and blend in together. So it gives you a whole different look. So here you can see, here's the blue just on its own. If I were to push nice and hard, this is what the blue would look like. And then I'll do a strip up here of what the red would look like if I just push down nice and hard on my own here. So we have a strip of the blue. And the nice thing about the abstract is you can't go wrong with your lines because it's just kind of an abstract swirl. And then here's where we're continuing to layer them until they eventually get fully saturated. And I'm just going to keep going back and forth as that creates that layered. And I don't want to push too hard. If I push too hard, I'm going to oversaturate it to one of those colors. You can see I'm brushing off a little because as it's going, it's kind of just shedding a little bit of that color. So it's a little different than if you were to blend it on paper because you're not having the two colors actually blend. They're just mixing in the area. So you're getting dot, 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 dot intermingled with dot, 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 dot to create a color difference rather than if you were on paper to go over and then blend it, they would blend in together because they would run together. So that's one nice thing about colored pencils is they're always really great for blending to create those new colors. But with this, see the paper is smooth, so you can blend it and you start getting that mixed color. On here, it's just going to be the dots intermingled, but that still gives you that visual of a different color. So, all right, we've got our big center line here. I'm gonna grab a different blue. I want to fill this in here. I think I want this one to come in and around this way. And I think I want to take the red and I want to fill the red in right up here. So we're going for this nice planetary feel with it. And so again, we're just going to draw a line and then we're going to draw another line parallel with it, or not parallel, but like across from it. Weave it out into a different shape and then fill it in. And go back to this dark blue. And I think we're gonna draw the line here and we're gonna use that other pattern as the bottom line. Fill it in. I'm gonna have a little bit coming up here. That as well. To the edge. And like I said, you don't need to push too hard. You just want to go back and forth. When I'm getting those shedding, that's when I get excited and I start pushing too hard on my pencil and I have to go, oh wait, gotta slow down. No rush. Just get excited sometimes. This line. And that line. They're really arbitrary, just sort of, I feel like drawing two lines and then I color them in. And you can see that slowly creating that sort of planetary feel. I'm just gonna come in another little shoot here, but you can also leave some of the copper exposed too. Bring a little bit of red in there. Little thing of red here. Go. And I'm leaving some of that copper as well. And so now I have my planetary pendant. Nice little space look to it. So we've got the swirls, and you can have it swirling around. Some people I've seen like to do more of this sort of swirl, and then you can put lines like this and color them in different colors if you want. You can have something that's radiating out, similar to that flower starburst pattern. There's so many different things that you can do with these. But now we're going to move on to how to make them into necklaces. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to take the thicker gauge wire, and I'm going to go over some basic wire twisting techniques. If you've seen a video with me before, you've seen a little bit of these already, but I will go over them one more time. So there's two styles of wire twisting that I like to do. One I call the twist, and one I call a spiral. Let's see if I can spell spiral. So with the twist, you've got the wire, and you have it at this 90-degree angle here. You're going to have the two ends of the wire at this 90-degree angle, and you're going to end up twisting them together so they kind of go around like this, interlocking. So I'm going to grab a piece of this to show you. With that, you have your wire. You cross it over. You're keeping them at a 90-degree angle, right? Yeah. Grabbing them with your thumb. So you're grabbing both ends of the wire and you're going to twist it. And how fast or slow you go is going to depend on how your twists look. So how tight they look. If you go slow or you bring the wire in, so I can bring it in a little more and then go slow, that'll give me wider twists. You can bring them out a little bit and twist fast. And I can get really tight twists. So you can see, if I can get that in the focus range, you can see that there's tighter, wider, and then really tight. And the two factors are the speed that I'm twisting it at and the angle that I'm holding it at. I try to aim for a 90-degree angle, make sure my twists stay consistent. The spiral, you're taking the wire, you have one, and you loop it down, and you're doing it at a different 90-degree angle because you're keeping one wire straight, and then the other wire is going to just loop around that straight wire. So grab another little piece from here. So we're going to make our circle, but we're going to keep, rather than having them both at 90 degrees, we're going to keep this one straight, and this will be 90 degrees from it. We're going to hold on to the bottom loop, and we're going to twist this around the one that's sticking out straight. Just going to twist that around. And so we're essentially spiraling it around that straight piece. This is where having a pliers can really come in handy, but you can definitely do this with your bare hands. It might not be as neat. If you have a pliers and you have like a little gap there that you don't like, you just take the pliers and you can squish it together. Another thing that pliers can come in handy for is holding, especially if you want to get the right size loop, but they're really great just for holding this, so then you can come around. If you hold it this way, you can spiral around a lot easier because I don't have to worry about trying to grip that with my fingers. So I'm able to spiral this. Can we raise the focus just a little bit higher? There we go. Trying to get a little, oh, we want another wire here. There we go. Trying to see if we can get that a little bit more. Oh, there we go. Almost at it. There we go. Get that a little bit more clearly for you so you can see those wires clearly and you can see the difference between the two techniques and what they'll do for you. They'll give you a very different look. Again, if you do have needle nose pliers, the nice thing that you can do with those is you can make a consistent loop size by going around this way. Again, not needed at all. Another way you can get a nice loop is you can take your colored pencil, right? Piece of wire here. If you want a nice consistent loop, maybe it'll be a little bit wider, but you can just wrap it around your pencil, and that will give you a nice consistent loop size as well. All right, so now we have gone over our basic twisting types. We're going to take the thicker wire because this is what we're going to want to use to hold our pendants on. So if you're able to cut it, that's great. You might be able to take it in half and just bend it because we have two pendants here I want to do. So I'm going to try to see if we can get this for you guys. Go back and forth. And if you just keep going back and forth like that, you will eventually snap the wire, because what you're doing when you do that is you are actually stiffening the wire. Clean up these colored pencils so I have a nicer working space. When you go back and forth like that, you're actually stiffening the wire until it gets so stiff that it becomes brittle, and that's how you're able to break it pretty nicely. So now we have two pieces of wire so that we can hang our different medallions. So I'm going to take the planetary one, and I'm going to put the wire through the hole of the planet. I'm going to take my finger, and I'm just going to sort of rub it along like that to give a nice little arch to it. And I'm going to leave this end sticking out, and I'm going to take this end around. And that's a great way that I'm able to make a nice even loop. Another way you can do it is, again, taking that colored pencil. One of those out. Great, you can take the colored pencil if you want a really nice round loop. Once it's on here, you hold the colored pencil down and then wrap it around. And that's another way that you can get a nice round loop by really using that colored pencil as your mold to get that roundness to that loop. So got it like that. And what I'm going to do is the spiral now. So I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold the pendant and I'm going to hold that loop where I want it. And I'm going to wrap this guy around. I'm going to wrap him nice and tight. So it might go out of focus a little bit because I'm trying to hold it. And then I'm taking my finger, see how it's up against the wire, and I'm gripping it with my thumb. And I'm just trying to twist the piece basically. It's a little easier. And I'm holding this in place as I twist. And that really gives me the force so that I can kind of twist it back and around. And you can just keep going until you've twisted it up all of your wire. So now that it's a little bit more secure, it's easier with my finger to just come and twist it with my thumb so I can hold it from here with my thumb, because the wire, once it's twisted, it makes that whole section very thick. We're like tripling it in thickness. Oops, see, and I got a little up. You can always just untwist a bit and push it back down, even if you don't have pliers. One thing I would recommend for the very end, if you do have pliers, because you have this end nib, pliers are really great because they allow you to come in and just squeeze it down to it. If you don't have pliers, take it along a table edge. I don't really have an edge of a table that I can show you. I can kind of show you in here. And push it and twist it with the table edge. Or if you have something heavy that you can kind of push down on it, like even a rock, to have it down on the table. And then just take whatever big heavy thing that you have and push it down. And you really want to push that down so you don't have this sharp edge sticking out. Like I said, I feel the best way is to take a pliers, or even like the open end of a scissors might work for it. And that just sort of helps to push down. You don't want to get sharp and get cut. So then we're going to take our string, our leather, and what we're going to do, so we have the pendant attached like this, and we are going to attach it to the wire. But now, if I were to do that same style loop, we would have an awkward gap between this spiral and the next spiral. So a way to fix that is to take a bead. These beads are actually kind of thick. So these beads wouldn't necessarily work for this. If you have any other beads, these little ones, if you have any sort of other beads laying around, and you don't need to do this, but it is a nice little technique just to kind of smooth out your spiral. You can also have the spirals overlap with each other. So the little beads they included are a bit thick, but I'm going to actually put 2 beads down on here. And that's just a way to fill that gap. Just taking a bead that's around the same, the hole being about the same thickness of the wire. With these thicker ones, what you could do is you could stack them all the way so you won't see the spiral at all. You would just see the beads, and that's perfectly acceptable as a method as well. And like I said, you don't even have to do it at all. So now we're going to attach it to the cording. And what we want to make sure when we attach it to the cording is that the loop is going forward. See how the loop is going forward with the pendant? It's not sideways. We need to make sure that's the same way so that we're running that cord through it as well. If we did the loop this way, the pendant would lay on its side to your body. So we want to make sure that we are making that nice little loop. I'm going to do it up a little higher. And because the cord can be strung through after, I'm going to use the colored pencil to make sure my loop is nice and round. Go. Once it's nice and round too, I can even tighten it, taking my thumb, kind of twirling it to make it a little smaller. Wire's got a lot of nice flexibility. And then I'm holding it between my thumb and my finger. And again, I'm going to spiral wrap. First couple spirals, it's easier to twist the whole piece if you're able. And then after that, looks like my spiral got a little out of control there a bit. So I'm gonna take my fingers and try to move it. If I can't, I'm gonna reach in here with the pencil. Utilize the tools you have at hand. So that if you're able to get the pliers, that makes it a lot easier, but be inventive, be creative, be a maker, and utilize the tools that you have there. We're just gonna keep spiraling this around. So we get to that very end. You can see there's that little bit tucked out. Again, if you have a scissors, you can utilize the pencil again. To utilize the pencil, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our finger down, have the pencil up against the metal part, and we're just gonna twist it. Because we don't want sharp edges. No one wants to wear something that has sharp edges. You can see just by twisting it, it dug into the pencil a little bit. That's how sharp that edge was. That's why we don't want that digging into us. But we were able to push it down nicely against that bead. Now for my own taste, I'm gonna come in here with the pliers. To have my really clean lines. So it was down enough that it wouldn't hurt you. I'm pushing it down just a little bit more because that cleans out that line, makes them all the same thickness. So you can see what happened when I spiraled it. Oh no, my twist ended up being sideways. Super simple fix. Just twist it a little bit more. And there you go. Actually, I'm gonna twist it all the way around that way because I want the edge piece, the point, to be facing backwards, and that's just for aesthetic purposes. So now we have the loop here. Do you actually want to switch to the frontal view? Might be a little easier for this. So now you can see we have our pendant dangling. We want to be able to attach it as a necklace. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the string and we're going to loop it through, or just run it through. And voila, you have the basics of your necklace, right? And then we're going to take these beads. And you can attach these beads in a couple of different ways. So one way you might want to attach the beads is, these are very wide holes to these beads. So we can just take the beads and actually string them through. I'm going to put one on either side of my pendant. There we go. So you can just string them through like that and bead them. Maybe you don't want everything moving around. One way that you can do that is you can then tie a knot in the string. You want to make sure everything's centered where you want it. But if we tie this knot in the string, and then we have the bead there, and push the other bead there, and then we're going to tie a knot in the string. And then when we're wearing it, it can't move around from side to side. And that was just done with a simple little knot. So you can see that holds it in place. If we want to attach the beads, we can utilize this wire as well. So I'm going to take one strand of this wire and I'm going to show you with, I suppose I can show you with this guy. So if you did the magic wand class with me, you might be familiar with just bending the wire just a little bit. Actually, this part might be better with the overhead view. Switching it up on you guys. So, okay, we're gonna just put a slight bend in the wire. We're gonna line it up where we want it on that leather cord. And then we're gonna twist it and we want to make sure that we're twisting it nice and tight. Oops, see, and I screwed up. I had a little bit too much excess. So I'm just going to untwist it because wire is great that way. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to straighten it out. I'm going to use my fingers, just going like this. Is a great way to really straighten everything out. So I just want a little tiny bit of a bend up, and too much of a bend up there. Line it up with where I want on the wire. You really want to get this first one nice and tight around the cording. So that's going to start you off. And then we're going to go towards where we had that bend lined up, spiraling it around. It's a little tricky to do with just your fingers. Again, if you have plier access, I recommend it. You can always grab it with your pliers and hold it in place or pinch it tight. Pliers are great. With this leather cord, you can just pinch the wire into it because it's got more give. I think, can we raise the focus a little bit now? I'm working a little higher. In and out of focus. Confused. Oh, there we go. Not into that super fine detail anymore. It's all right. We got a bit of that twisting around it started. And I just want to hide that tip a bit. All right. So now we've got some wire started twisting on it, and we want to add in a bead. I'm going to take one of these beads. I'm going to put it on. And then I'm just going to have it on like that against the wire. And then I'm going to start twisting again, and I'm going to start wrapping it again. Or sorry, against the cording. I'm going to start twisting the cording. You could also do this to add in one of the charms. So I could either keep going with that and add in the other bead, or I can bring in one of these charms, take the charm, put that charm right on. If I'm doing it with the charm, I want to make sure that it's lining up with the base of the necklace. I want to make sure that if the necklace is facing this way, charm is backwards. There we go. There's a front or a back to the charm. Some of the charms have both a front and a back, some don't. So I'm just looping it through. All right, so I want it to be centered. So as I'm coming around with the pendant facing that way, that's where I want the charm to fall. I'm going to leave a little bit of excess, and then I'm going to twist. This is not my preferred method for attaching a charms. I'm just kind of showing it to you because it's a way you can do it, and I want you to experiment and try different ways that you like. But then you can see with this method, the charm is then attached and dangling, there. So and I'm just going to cut this because I don't want to keep twisting to show that you kind of get the idea of how this works. And you can keep attaching beads that way. And then you just kind of, when you finish wrapping it, wrap it all the way to the end, and we'll do the same thing we did, either utilizing the table or the pencil, just to push in that end so you don't have a sharp edge. So then another way that we can attach the charms is you could attach the charms or beads in the same way as we did with this spiral, right? You can put the charm at the end of the spiral, the same way you did your pendant, or we can utilize the twist method. The twist is actually really nice if you wanted to put on one of those beads dangling. So what we can do is we run the wire through the bead. And whereas if we did the spiral method, it would look a little bit awkward with the bead hanging because you'd be a little bit lopsided. You'd have the wire here, the bead hanging, and then this piece coming around. So you're kind of awkwardly making that bead a little more lopsided. It's nice to do a twist because a twist you can hold the bead. This will be your center point. And it's kind of nice to be able to hold that bead and then just twist. So for anything that's like a charm or a pendant, I really prefer the spiral. Anytime I'm attaching a bead, I really like to do that twist method. And then with that twist method, I have a couple of options on how I'm going to attach this. I can take it just like that, so you can see it's kind of stiff. And then I'm going to line it up with the cord, and I can do the same spiraling around that I was doing before. Just sort of attach it that way. And then you don't have to keep the spirals tight either when you're doing it on the leather cord. Maybe for stylization, you want them to go wide. And you can see how that adds a different texture. You can cross it back over. So if you remember when we did the magic wands, that we did a similar thing where we created texture with the wire on the leather cord, on the wood. Now we're doing it on the leather cording. So you can do something like that. You could incorporate wrapping the beads like we did over on this side into that as well. All right. Or I'm just going to cut these ends, showing you the different methods. I'll grab another piece of wire. This will be. So if we do the spiral method or the twist method for a pendant here. Once you have that twisted, another way you can do it rather than having that separate spiral is you can actually take your two pieces of metal or two pieces of wire, loop them around, right? And then you can do, using both pieces of wire, you can do a double spiral over your twist. So that is a whole nother way that you can attach something. So I invite you to be creative, explore, try different ways of connecting things onto your necklace, of attaching beads. You can see it's not very cohesive because I was trying to show a couple different methods of doing things. That's how I really don't like attaching charms via that spiraled method because they can have a hard time laying flat the way you want versus if you're attaching it with a bead, it's always kind of going to be laying flat the way you want. And quickly before we go, I got to show you how to make this into a final necklace. So we're going to cross over your two strings for your ends, right? And to make this an adjustable necklace, you can always just take it and tie it in a knot and you'll have a set necklace. But if we want to make this adjustable, we're going to cross over these ends. You're going to take the one end, loop it underneath, making a loop like this. And we're going to take this end here that's on the top right now and went under and over. And then we're going to pull it through. And then we're just going to tighten that. So you can see how this moves. Then we're going to do this on the other side. We're going to come to the other side here. We're going to take this string. We're going to loop it under again. See, even I got confused looking at the screen, and then over. So we're coming from the bottom this time, but we're going under and then over again. And then loop it under in between these two. And then we're going to pull it tight. Now you have an adjustable necklace. Don't switch to the front view. So now you can see nice adjustable necklace that we can adjust to fit on us. So I can pull it over. Got a little bit of hair flower in there. And then grabbing those two ends, I can tighten it to the height that I desire. So that is how you make a leather cord into an adjustable necklace. And because I center this, I have to recenter my necklace. All of these techniques can be great for making all different sorts of style of jewelry. Like I said, I'm a jewelry artist and a designer. I work with Osorelloero, and I make fun little things like all of my earrings and that were designed using these basic techniques, and I just incorporate them in different ways. What I love about the pendants is getting a chance to kind of color and draw in a way that I don't get to. Usually I fill up sketchbooks, nobody gets to see them. When you make something like this, you're able to just show your art to the world, and it's a really great, fun way to be like, not only did I make this, but I can also wear it and show it around. So I hope you had a really great day, and I hope you have a fun weekend creating and coming up with lots of great ideas for your necklaces. Have a great day.